Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Marina Grosu from Washington, D.C. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Cardinal Péter Erdő, Archbishop of Esztergom-Budapest, said that the Hungarians felt the Holy Father's warmth and responded to it, who truly came as a pilgrim of peace and man of faith amid these troubling times. After Pope Francis's 41st apostolic journey abroad, the Primate of Hungary spoke with Vatican News in the capital, Budapest. The visit of Pope Francis was a special joy for the Hungarian Catholic community in particular, but also for the whole nation. The Cardinal points out that many non-Catholics turned out for the Pope's events. Just like St. Stephen, who dedicated the whole nation to the Virgin Mary, Pope Francis offered Hungary and Europe the protection of the Virgin Mary and prayed for peace in his Regina Coeli address at the end of Mass on Sunday. In its 2023 annual report, the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom details developments from 2022, including notable deterioration of religious freedom in nations like Afghanistan, China, Cuba, Iran, Nicaragua, and Russia. In the report, the Commission makes recommendations for strengthening American government assistance for religious freedom worldwide. As the conflict between opposing military factions enters its third week, the UN Secretary General is dispatching a special representative to Sudan to coordinate humanitarian efforts. The UN Emergency Relief Coordinator, Martin Griffith, says he will explore how to bring immediate aid to the millions of Sudanese people whose lives have been turned upside down. Airstrikes continue to pound Khartoum despite a ceasefire announced by the army and its paramilitary adversary, Rapid Support Forces. At least 500 people have died since the unrest began, though the actual number is believed to be much higher. Meanwhile, the World Food Programme resumes work in Sudan after temporarily suspending operations due to violence that left millions of people hungry. The program halted its life-saving operations after 3 of its employees were killed in North Darfur on April 15th, the first day of fighting between the Sudanese army and the opposing Rapid Support Forces. Food distribution is set to begin in 4 states: Gedaref, Jazeera, Kassala, and White Nile. As Russian troops pull back from the Kyiv area, they leave horrific evidence of international humanitarian law violations and war crimes. CBN News reports that the farmers risk possibly hitting a hidden landmine while plowing their fields. Hundreds of thousands of mines litter the fields, and dozens of farmers have already died while trying to plant their crops in areas liberated from Russian occupation. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says that unexploded enemy mines fill an area of more than 170,000 square kilometers of territory. The state emergency services are working to help the farmers restart their livelihood. Meanwhile, the United States, Great Britain, and South Korea will cooperate with Ukraine to train pastoral workers in the Ukrainian forces. Thousands of people thronged the streets of the Irish capital, Dublin, on May 1st for a pro-life march. Organized by an Irish pro-life advocacy group, Pro-Life Campaign, the march was in response to an independent review of Ireland's abortion legislation. The march comes against a proposed review of abortion legislation expanding abortion in communities and hospitals. Pro-lifers took to the streets after the review recommended eliminating the current 3-day waiting period between the certification of pregnancy termination and the procedure. Archbishop of Oklahoma City Paul Coakley released a pastoral letter on Sunday, April 30th, titled "On the Unity of the Body and Soul," accompanying those experiencing gender dysphoria. The aim of this letter is to offer pastoral advice on how the Church, its ministers, and the lay faithful can accompany those who struggle with their gender identity, especially those who identify as so-called transgendered. The Archbishop defines gender dysphoria as strong, persistent feelings of identification with another sex and discomfort with one's biological sex. Archbishop Coakley urged the Catholics to be concerned for the well-being of people who identify as so-called transgendered. In his prayer intention for May 2023, Pope Francis requests prayers for the church movements and groups to rediscover their daily mission of evangelization by putting their own charisms at the service of needs in the world. Keeping the church movements alive is a challenge due to the winds of secularism and other societal pressures. Therefore, the Holy Father's call to pray for these religious groups are significant during this month dedicated to the Virgin Mary. Archbishop Timothy Broglio of the U.S. Archdiocese for the Military Services, who is also the head of the U.S. bishops, condemned the Senate's approval of the Department of Veterans Affairs rule that allows abortions at the department's medical facilities. Archbishop Broglio wrote in a pastoral letter that he was deeply saddened by the Senate's decision. He said that the new regulation would permit medical centers to conduct abortions regardless of state prohibitions, where the life or health of the mother is in danger, and in cases of rape and incest. Archbishop Broglio also criticized the rule as it does not have any conscience protections for doctors or other healthcare professionals who object to participating in abortions. The Archbishop asked the faithful to exercise radical solidarity with the mothers and families experiencing a challenging pregnancy. The search is on for the kidnappers who took 2 priests as hostage in the southern Nigerian Delta state, according to the police. Unidentified armed men abducted Catholic priest Father Chochos Kunav and his colleague Father Raphael Ogigba on April 30th. This was the latest among a series of kidnappings and attacks targeting Nigeria's Christian institutions, clerics, and the faithful. In another incident, abductors released Catholic priest Father Michael Asamuga from the southeast Nigerian state of Imo. The local church officials confirmed that the priest was released after 15 days of abduction. Father Asamuga was returning from a diocesan diaconate ordination when the kidnapping occurred on April 15th. The bishops of Peru and Chile have called on the authorities of both countries to seek a solution through dialogue to the migration crisis at the border. Hundreds of migrants, mostly Venezuelans, Colombians, and Haitians, have been trying to leave Chile and enter Peru because Chile has toughened its immigration policies. Only those who present their immigration card, visa, and passport are being accepted. The rest have remained on the border between the two countries, enduring the harsh weather of the desert, with some of them engaging in confrontations with the police. In a statement, the bishops lamented the clashes at the border and reiterated their call for a dialogue between all parties involved so that a solution could be found for migrants. The Republican lawmakers of the U.S. state of Maine decried a proposal to give the state one of the most liberal abortion laws in the country. Through a proposed bill, Democratic Governor Janet Mills advanced to legalize abortion after fetal viability, or 24 weeks into pregnancy. If the proposal passes, state law will change to allow abortion after fetal viability if it's deemed necessary by a physician. The proposed bill will reportedly pass as the Democrats control the state's legislature. The governor's proposal came as Republican-controlled states moved to limit abortion. The United States Supreme Court declined to challenge an Indiana law that requires abortion providers to bury or cremate embryonic or fetal remains after the procedure was performed. The Supreme Court's decision will now place Indiana's statute, which requires a respectful burial of the aborted or miscarried fetus. Former Indiana Governor Mike Pence signed a law in 2016 requiring abortion facilities to either bury or cremate the fetal remains instead of incinerating them. Abortion activists challenged it, stating that the law unconstitutionally compels people to convey the state's message that an embryo is a person. This challenge was not taken up by the U.S. Supreme Court. The National Eucharistic Revival of the United States Bishops invites parishes to restore understanding and devotion to the Eucharist, which is the source of the Catholic faith. As the National Eucharistic Revival prepares to enter into the year of the parish on the solemnity of Corpus Christi, the Leader's Playbook is a guide offering concrete steps for parishes to bolster their Eucharistic culture and share the gift of the Eucharist with all Catholics, especially those who have not fully encountered Christ in the Holy Eucharist. The playbook is built around the 4 pillars that uphold the movement of the revival: reinvigorating devotion, personal encounter, robust faith formation, and missionary sending. The playbook highlights best practices to coincide with each of the 4 revival pillars, using the example of various dioceses across the country that have already put into place several impactful initiatives and events. And those are your latest headlines. Join us again tomorrow for more. You can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.